Okay, go to paper one. All right, the first question.
Which statement about the factors of prediction is correct?
When you talk about factors of production, we're talking about resources that help in the production of goods and services. These are factors of production. So we have land, we have labor, we have capital, we have enterprise. They are all factors of production. But the question is about a statement that is right about them, right?
Yeah.
So capital is the financial resources and includes savings. No, capital is not a financial resources. Capital is the wealth used in producing other wealth. Enterprise is limited in supply and includes office workers. No, enterprise are the organizers or the owners of factors of production. Labor is a human resource, yes, and includes pensions and children. No, it does not include pension. It does not include pensions and children, but it's human resource.
Okay.
So the land is a natural resource and includes trees and fish. Yes.
Yeah.
So land is anything on land. So it's land. So the answer is D. Question 2.
A builder spends 1 hour traveling to and from work. He works 40 hours per week for $200. He is given a choice to work 50 hours a week for an extra $75. What would be the opportunity cost of the builder of working the extra hours?
So if he works for 40 hours, he's going to get $200. But if he works for 50 hours, that was extra, he's going to get $75 for that 10 hours, extra 10 hours. So the opportunity cost would be the extra 10 hours that he won't be able to have his own time. Do you get it? So the additional, the ability to, so the 10 hours of leisure time. So because the 10 hour is always there, but now the 10 hour is going to be engaged, booked for $75. So for him to have $75, it means he has to forego the 10 hours of leisure. So the answer is D. Question 3, please.
A country's infrastructure was damaged by a natural disaster. Before the disaster, the country was producing at point Y on the production possibility curve, PPC, which point represents the country's production immediately after the disaster.
PPC can either shift outward or inward. Outward means there's improvement in technology. It could be because advancement in technology. It could be availability of raw materials. It could be training and education. These are reasons why the PPC curve will shift outward. But when it shifts inward, it means something is wrong with the economy. So reasons why the PPC could shift leftward is 1, natural disaster. 2, poor government decisions would also lead to an inward shift in PPC. What else could lead to an inward shift? Aside natural disaster, poor government decision, poor government policy, also lack of innovation. So these are reasons why the PPC will shift inward. So here, there's natural disaster. So the PPC will shift inward because at that point in time, the output in that economy would reduce. So towards D. So the answer is D. Question 4.
What is included in macroeconomics?
When we're talking about macroeconomics, we're talking about the study of demand and supply. When you talk about macro means the study of the whole economy. So when you're studying individual firms in the economy, it is micro. When you're studying demand or supply, it's micro. When you have to study aggregate demand or aggregate supply, it's macro. Okay, so here they said the regulation of national income and expenditure, no. The effect of a change in exchange rate, no. The effect of an increase in the price of goods, that's inflation, no. The factors leading to demand pull inflation. So we are in number 4, right? Okay, so the answer is for microeconomics. So they said the effect of an increase in the price of goods and services, which is demand and supply. So the answer is C. For demand pull inflation, it will be for aggregate demand, which is economy as a whole. Exchange rate is the economy as a whole. National income is GDP, so it's economy as a whole. Demand pull inflation is an economy as a whole. So the only one that has price of goods and services, which is demand in the economy, is C. And that's micro.
5, that is an economist definition of the market.
So when talking about a market is a system that enables individuals or firms to buy and sell. So the answer is C.
6, what is an example of an external benefit from an individual recycling rather than driving to work?
So when we talk about external benefit, external benefit is the benefit to third party as a result of the action or inaction of an individual or firm or government. That is external benefits. But for private benefits are the benefits you enjoy because of your own action or inaction. So here they said an example of external benefit here. So an example of external benefit here will be external benefit is the same as positive externalities. We call it external benefit or positive externality. So for positive externality to happen here, it would have been as a result of reduced congestion of other road users. Do you get the point here? Yeah. Because you using bicycle means that you're not riding your car. So riding your car would increase the number of cars in the road. Yeah. So you not driving a car means you're riding a bicycle. It reduces congestion in the road. Yeah. So the answer is D. Yeah.
7. A tailor has 4 customers for her range of suits. The table shows the yearly demand for the suits she makes. What price should be charged to maximize the tailor's yearly revenue?
So we want the maximum revenue here. And to get revenue, we're talking about total revenue, which is price multiplied by quantity. So to get the maximum revenue, we're talking about the highest revenue that could be made with this, given these prices. So we start with the first one. Okay. For 800, that means for customer how it will be 800 multiplied by 4. Customer X, it's 800 multiplied. That we have 4 plus 1, which is 5, plus 2, which is 7, plus 2, which is 9. 9 multiplied by 800, we're going to have 7,200 at the price of 800. At the price of 900, we're going to have 4 plus 1 plus 2. That's 7. 7 multiplied by 900, that's 6,300. At the price of at the price of 900, we had all the customers together. 4 plus 1 plus 2, that's 8. 8 multiplied by 9, we have 6,300. Then we have 1,000. At the price of 1,000, we have 3 plus 1 plus 1, which is 5. 5 multiplied by 1,000, that's 5,000. Then at the price of 1,100, we have 2 plus 1, which is 3, multiplied by 1,100, we have 3,300. So the highest revenue that could be made here is 7,200, which is at the price of 800. Is it clear?
Yeah.
That's A.
Okay.
Question 8, please.
In response to an increase in price from $5 per kilo to $6 per kilo, a farmer increased supply from 400 kilos to 500 per week. What is the price elasticity of supply?
So when you talk about price elasticity of supply, is the degree of responsiveness between the quantity supply of a product as a result of a change in price. That is price elasticity of supply. So the formula for PES is percentage change in the quantity supplied over percentage change in price. Where we have our percentage change in quantity supply as Q1 and Q2, which is Q1 400, Q2 500. We have P1 as 5, P2 as 6. Then we have Q2 minus Q1, which is 500 minus 400 over Q1, which is 400, divided by P2 minus P1, 6 minus 5 over P1, which is 5. So 500 minus 400 is 100 over 400, divided by 5 over 6 minus 5. Then we cross multiply, or we change it to reciprocal. So you have 100 over 400 multiplied by 5 over 1. 100 divided by 400 is 1 over 4. Then 1 over 4 multiplied by 5 over 1 is 5 over 4. 5 over 4 is the same as 1.25. D.
Okay.
Question 9.
It is expected that consumers will use less paper money. What is the most likely reason for this?
So if consumers are to use less paper money, it means there are other ways in which they can spend, that they have other options of spending. You get the point? So I said, if consumers are to use less paper money, it means there are other ways in which consumers will be making their payments for purchase. So normally consumers will purchase or they will buy, but now they don't want to use paper money. It means they have other methods of payment. So the answer is B.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
10. In low-income countries, fewer girls than boys become skilled design engineers. What might explain this situation?
So if fewer girls are becoming skilled designers or design engineers than boys, it means girls are not given the same opportunity as boys in terms of education. Do you get it? So based on the options we have here, they said girls are only interested in low-wage jobs now. Girls do not favor heavy manual work. It's skill design engineering, so it's not manual. Okay, so girls have fewer opportunities to complete higher education. Yes, that's the answer. And the last one, they said it costs more for girls to be trained as design engineers. So it's going to be the same price.
Yeah.
So it's C. It's B, sorry.
Left in the diagram shows the demand for and
Sorry,
supply.
see, we're talking about question 10, right?
Yeah.
It's C. We don't C, okay, yeah. Question 11.
The diagram shows the demand for and supply labor in an industry. The original equilibrium is X, a trade union that negotiates a wage rate of W. What identifies the change in employment?
First, at point X indicates equilibrium wage rate, which means the demand for labor and the supply of labor agree at that wage. But now, if wage rate has increased above the equilibrium wage rate, this will lead to excess supply. Do you get the point? So excess supply would mean that the demand for labor would fall leftward from D to D1. Do you get my point here?
Yeah.
So from D, which is S, to D1, which is at R. Do you get it?
Yeah.
And for that, so we're going to have the demand for labor falling from D to D1, which means firms will not be willing to employ more workers because the wage rate is higher for them to pay. So it is the relationship is between R and S or S and R. So you see here.
Well, the company might call to invest in machinery to replace some workers. Eventually, the economies are still afford. What could cause the situation?
So when I talk about diseconomies of scale, diseconomies of scale is an increase in average cost of production due to expansion. So you are supposed to witness reduction in your average cost, but if you are witnessing an increase in your average cost, it means there's diseconomies of scale. So the economies of scales here could be, it said already, as more cobalt is mined, average cost increases. So as more is mined, you are supposed to reduce your average cost, but here the average cost is increasing. That is diseconomies of scale. They said fewer workers are needed to produce the required output. If that is happening, that is economies of scale. Output per hour increases, that is economies of scale. Overhead costs are spread as output increases, that is economies of scale. So the answer is A.
13. Why are many
Hairdressers
able to operate as small businesses?
Yeah, they'll be able to operate small businesses because the cost of running a small business is less. So the answer is D. Clear, right? 14.
Daventry owns a firm that produces and sells bottles of lemonade. It only sells one size of bottle. How would the merchant calculate the total revenue?
Total revenue is price multiplied by quantity. So the answer is B. Multiply the quantity sold by the price per bottle.
Okay.
B. Question 15.
Which market is likely to be the most competitive?
Before we go into which market, what is competition itself? Competition means rivalry that exists between firms in the same industry. So if competition is going to increase, it will mean that there's no barrier to entry. That means all firms can open or set up in that industry. So that means low barrier to entry. So high barrier, A and B is not going to be an option because high barrier to entry will reduce competition. Do you understand the point? Yeah. So the answer is between C and D. So for C, they said low barriers to entry, yes. Number of sellers, if it is few, then there's no competition. Okay. So the answer is D because competition means there's low barrier to entry and many producers selling homogeneous products, selling products that are almost the same. Okay. So the answer is D.
Chapter 16. An economy has a high rate of inflation. In response to this, the government increases income tax. What is the most likely reason for this increase?
It says an economy has a high rate of inflation. That means the inflation rate is high. And if the inflation rate is high, the only way government could reduce or solve high rate of inflation is to find a way to reduce consumer spending. And to reduce consumer spending, government can use income tax because an increase in income tax reduces the disposable income. That means you won't be able to spend much like the way you used to spend. So that will reduce your consumption. So the answer is D. And when your consumption is reduced, that means your demand for goods or services reduces. So the answer is D. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Question 17.
interest rates or subsidized rates to control inflation. What might this policy be effective?
Governments might increase the interest rate
Mhm.
to reduce inflation. We already know that inflation might be as a result of increase in aggregate demand, which is demand pull inflation.
Mhm.
So if there is demand pull inflation, government might reduce it by increasing the interest rate. If government increases interest rate, it means that it motivates, it becomes an incentive for people to start saving, to enjoy high rate of interest.
Yeah.
So saving more means you spend less,
Okay.
and that would reduce demand pull inflation. So the other side, consumer may save more. Yes, saving more, it reduces demand pull inflation.
Mhm.
They said government spending may increase. No, government is trying to increase interest rate. Inflation, increase in government spending would lead to inflation.
Mhm.
So it's not an option. Investment may be encouraged. An increase in inflation would not encourage investment, would rather reduce investment. And if interest rate increases, firms will not be able to borrow money from the bank because they have to pay high interest rates.
Okay.
So investment will not be encouraged. The exchange rate may fall. No, exchange rate will not fall, to rather increase.
Yeah.
So the answer is
D.
D. Yes, done. No?
No.
The answer is A. Consumers will save more.
Yeah.
Savings they would want to enjoy or benefit from increase in interest rates. Question 18.
The government's revenue grew 8% to $3.25 trillion, and its expenditure was reduced to $3.69 trillion. What can be concluded from this?
The conclusion is this. Government revenue grew from 8% to 3.25. That is increase. Its expenditure was reduced by this. So first, when you check the revenue and expenditure is more than revenue, so it's still deficit. So the state of budget is still what? Deficit. So it's either A or B. It cannot be surplus. Surplus will only occur if your expenditure, if your revenue exceeds, if government revenue through tax exceeds expenditure, it will give us surplus. But if expenditure exceeds revenue, it is a deficit. So it's between A and B. So let's check government policy here. Based on what we have here, the revenue grew by 8%, which is good. At the same time, expenditure reduces. So what happens here is that there's a reduction in the deficit. Do you get the point? In the real life, revenue is still less than the expenditure, which is a deficit. But there is improvement in it. And improvement will mean that deficit has reduced. Is it clear? Yeah. So the answer is B. Question 19.
The country's inflation rate measured by the consumer prices index CPI was 3% in year 1. 3 years later, it was 0.8%. What can be concluded from this information?
They said a country's inflation rate measured, that the CPI was 3% in year 1, and at the end of year 3, it becomes 0.8. There's a fall in the price of in the inflation rate. We call it disinflation. What do I call it? Disinflation. That is a fall in the inflation rate. So a fall in the inflation rate will mean that the price increases is falling, which is B.
Or the rate of price increases, yeah.
Yeah, is B.
Okay.
It's called we can call it disinflation. Okay, question 20.
What will deflation most likely lead to?
Deflation is a persistent fall in the price of goods and services. It's not the same as a fall in the inflation rate. It's not the same. A fall in the inflation rate is disinflation. A fall in the general price level is deflation. So if there's a fall in general price level, it means goods and services become more affordable. Then the purchasing power will rise. So the answer is D. Okay. 21.
Economic growth can be defined as
an increase in country's output, which is productive capacity.
Okay.
So D.
22, the table compares the distribution of employment in selected industries in 2 years. How did the distribution of employment change between year 1 and year 2?
So here we have the total employment in the agricultural sector, we have in the primary sector, which is agriculture and mining, year 1 was 4, year 2 was 3. In mining, year 1 was 2, year 2 was 2. So what you can conclude in the primary sector is that we have 4 plus 2, 6, 3 plus 2, 5. It fell from 6 to 5. Did you get the point? I'm talking about the primary sector. The primary sector contains or entails agriculture and mining. So the total employment in agriculture in primary sector was 6 in year 1, and it becomes 5 in year 2. That it fell. So it's between A and B. So let's check the second one. Now, the secondary sector, which is only manufacturing, because retailing and transport is the tertiary sector. So we have the manufacturing sector. In year 1, it was 6, and in year 2, it was 6. So it remains constant, unchanged. So the answer is B. Is it clear?
Benefit. In a year 2, changes occurred in a company. Company directors' salaries increased by 15%. Office workers' wages increased by 5%. The rate of inflation was 3.4%. What happened to real income?
Well, it's even that way. Company director salary increased by 15%. That means real income of company director increases. Office workers' wages increased by 5%. Real income of workers increases.
Yeah.
So the answer is D.
Okay.
24.
24. The diagram shows birth rate, BR, and death rate in the 3 countries X, Y, and Z in 2 years, 1 and 2. There was no migration. Where was the rise in population in year 1 and a fall in population in year 2?
The comparison between the birth rate and death rate of year 1 and year 2 shows that there's a fall in the death rate and birth rate in year 2 is at Y. Did you get it here?
Yeah.
Is that Y? So the answer is D.
25. The rich 60% of the population of a high-income economy received an increase in income. The income of the rest of the population did not change, but happened to absolute and relative poverty.
When you talk about absolute poverty, it means a certain percentage of the population cannot afford the basic needs. That is absolute poverty. And when you talk about relative poverty, it means some of the population are better than those that are in poverty. That means part of the population can still afford the basic. That is relative poverty. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
All right. So based on this, now this side, the richest 60% of the population of high income economy received an increase in income. The income of the rest of the population did not change. So if it did not change, it means absolute poverty will remain the same. But relative poverty might change. Do you know why? Because those that are the 60% that comes from the rich people engage those that are in poverty. So they will have employment in them. They will employ most of them. So those that they will employ would be better off than those that are not employed. Do you understand? So absolute poverty might remain the same, but relative poverty would change. Is it clear?
Yeah. What is a disadvantage of increasing international?
No, 26 GDP. 26.
Gross domestic product GDP is a better measure of comparative living standards when it's adjusted for the effects
of population change and inflation. We have the nominal GDP, which is GDP. That's the nominal. But when you talk about the real GDP is when you have adjusted the gross domestic product with the population and inflation rate. Because these two things has impact in GDP.
Okay.
The more the population of a country is, the more likelier they have more output. And the more likely the demand for such economy increases. And if demand in such economy increases, it leads to inflation. So when you are calculating the GDP of a country, you have to adjust it to population change and inflation. And we call it real GDP. 27. So the answer is D, right? We talked about, okay.
27. What is the disadvantage of increasing international specialization?
Specialization. What is specialization? That means concentration of an individual, firm, or country in one aspect of goods or services. That's specialization. So a problem of specialization here is okay. They said consumers pay high prices for goods and services, reducing their welfare. Domestic firms may be uncompetitive, leading to structural unemployment. Domestic firms may experience rising costs as they pay more for imports. Resources may be used less effectively. No, the answer is B.
28. Which method of protection? Oh,
Do you know why it is B?
you told me.
Ah.
Yeah.
All right.
28. Which method of protection always reduces the supply of an unproductive good to zero?
To zero, it means you don't even have it at all. There's no importation. That is a total ban. Ban. It is an embargo.
Okay.
28.
A U.S. car dealer agrees on import price of $25,000 for Japanese car at the current rate of exchange. The U.S. dollar then strengthens by 10% against Japanese yen. What will be the new import price paid for the Japanese car?
One thing is certain. They said the US dollar increases by 10% against the Japanese yen. So that means less US dollar will buy more of Japanese yen. That is what the point is saying here. Do you get the point, please?
Yes.
More US dollar or less US dollar will buy more Japanese yen. So here, based on what we have said, there's 10% increase, right? So 10% increase is 10 over 100 multiplied by 25,000, which is $2,500. So $2,500 less of the amount that they are supposed to pay for the car. So that's 25,000 minus 2,500, which is 22,500. So the answer is B.
Okay. 30. A country has.
So is it 22,500? Yeah, B.
Yeah.
Yes. Question 30.
A country has a deficit on its current account if its balance of payments so it can increase the size of its deficit.
So what would cause an increase in the deficit? What would cause an increase in the balance of payment deficit? Number one, here they said increase exports of its services. If exports of services increases, it gives you more surplus. It increases your revenue in terms of exports or in terms of exportation. That means your balance of payment would improve. No, it's not going to cause a deficit. Increase international competitiveness. If there's increase in international competitiveness, it means you are exporting more. Your balance of payment would improve. Increased number of visitors from abroad. If not more of tourists are coming, that is export of service. It improves your balance of payment. So it improves. The last one, increase spending on its military base. You are spending on your country's base, military base abroad. You are spending there. What benefit? Nothing. You are just wasting money. So spending on such adventure is a waste. And it reflects in the balance of payment. So the answer is D. Clear, right? Thank you. Let me just see.